Because on the phone, waiting to talk to us, is Adam Zagoria. He is the basketball insider for SportsNet New York, SNY. And Adam, welcome to the show. And are you hearing the same rumors we're hearing? Something about a five-team NBA trade right before the draft includes the Knicks and the Sacramento Kings and the Philadelphia 76ers and the Denver Nuggets and I believe the Lakers. Are you hearing anything about this?
I confess I have not heard that. I mean, to pull off a five-team trade is pretty complicated, and, you know, it's a lot of moving pieces, so it'll be impressive if they can pull that off. I mean, certainly Phil Jackson and the Knicks are, you know, open to trading the fourth pick and acquiring an asset and a lower pick for sure, and I know those other teams are also interested in making trades.
Adam, what's the best case scenario for the New York Knicks as far as you can tell? How would they like this to play out on Thursday night?
Well, I mean, look, Phil Jackson is on the record as saying they need big men, defensive-oriented big men. I think ideally they would have gotten the first or second pick and gotten Towns or Okafor. You know, that's not going to happen. You know, they have worked out a slew of other guys. I mean, they've worked out everybody except Frank Isola and Mark Berman. You know, they worked out Frank Kaminsky and Trey Lyles, Willie Cauley-Stein. So unless Okafor drops to them at 4, which I don't think is going to happen, you know, they still could wind up with a D'Angelo Russell or an Emmanuel Mudiay, which I think would be a great get for them. But I could also see Phil trading down and, you know, getting another asset, another proven player, plus a Cauley-Stein or a Kaminsky or a Trey Lyles, you know, a young big man that they can use in the triangle.
Adam, this Woody, and I hope they don't ever work out Frank Isola because he can't play a lick. He can't. He can barely do it.
He would beat Berman in a one-on-one workout.
Yeah. No vertical.
He can't even. Well, he can't even ride a lick, so I don't know how he can play a lick. But we'll get back to the Knicks. Phil Jackson had to respond to. Really, are you going all out? Are you all in on doing this job? And he became very offensive about, oh, well, I moved to New York. Well, I moved to New York. I didn't run the Knicks any of the time I was there. Is Phil Jackson really doing a good job? We haven't seen any action out of him. Does he have to make this draft work, or the entire city's going to turn on him despite his success as a coach and even his background as a player with the Knicks?
Yeah, absolutely, Woody, 100%. I mean, look, they hired him. They're paying him $12 million a year, reportedly for 5 years, $60 million. He said at the beginning of the season the Knicks were going to make the playoffs. They didn't. They traded all kinds of people, Tyson Chandler, J.R. Smith, Shumpert, and got virtually nothing in return. Carmelo got hurt. They let him play in the All-Star game. You know, it's been a total, you know, tire fire over there. And now he really has to earn his money here in the summer by, A, making a smart draft pick, and B, getting some free agents to come to New York. And that's not an easy ask. I mean, but, you know, who is going to want to come play for a team that is coming off a horrible season, where their star players coming off knee surgery? You know, they'll probably get some players, but I don't see them getting, you know, the LaMarcus Aldridges and the Kevin Loves and the Rondos, the big-name free agents. So Phil Jackson's really going to be tested and have to earn his money here by putting together, you know, a team that can at least, you know, be relevant in New York and contend for the playoffs. And I also don't see him staying in New York for a full 5 years. I mean, he pretty much admitted in our last press conference, you know, when he met with the media, that he would be okay not staying for his full 5 years and leaving early. And, you know, he pretty much sounded like he had one foot out the door to California. You know, he's got some health issues. His fiancee, Jeannie Buss, and his family are in California. So I don't think anyone is going to be surprised if he's out of here in 2 or 3 years. And if, you know, if Jim Dolan hands the reins over to Isaiah Thomas at that point either, I don't think we'd be shocked.
Ugh.
All our live guests are brought to you by Papa John's, and we assume Adam is live. And Papa John's is the official sponsor of the Colorado Rockies. You are live, aren't you, Adam? The day after every the day after every Rockies win, get 50% off your regular menu, and you want to jump on that offer because it doesn't happen very often. At papajohns.com, use the promo code ROCKSWIN. Sorry, I can't laugh through a commercial, can I? But Papa John's, the official sponsor of this show and the official sponsor of the Colorado Rockies, and I think the Denver Nuggets, when they're in season, they picked a bunch of losers, haven't they, to be involved with? Adam, specifically, I believe that free agents don't want to play with Carmelo. How do you get past that free agents really think he is such a ball hog, he's not a team player? Is Phil Jackson going to be able to pull that off? You mentioned LaMarcus Aldridge is not going to come there, but he's banking on that he can get 3 or 4 guys to move to the Knicks. Is that going to happen?
Well, look, I mean, they have, $25, $30 million in cap space. It is New York City. It is Madison Square Garden. Some players are going to come there. I mean, I think there will be, the appeal of the Garden in New York, and they have the money. Greg Monroe is a guy that, we've been talking about in New York for months as someone they're targeting as a big man. And if they could get a Greg Monroe and also trade down and maybe get a guy like a Willie Cauley-Stein, a defensive big man out of Kentucky, then you get a couple big men that you could piece in there with Carmelo. And, you still have to get some guards via free agency or trade or whatever. But they have a lot of pieces to fill. It's not like they need 1 or 2 things. They really only have, Carmelo and a handful of borderline D-League role players coming back. So, again, it's really going to be a big test for Phil Jackson to persuade a guy like a Greg Monroe or one of these other relatively big-name free agents. And a lot of the good guys are restricted free agents, like Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard. These guys are restricted, so their current teams can match whatever offer the Knicks or somebody else makes. So I think Phil has his hands full, and that's why, it wouldn't surprise me if he trades down, because then you're getting multiple assets for the one pick.
Adam, unless the Knicks do trade up in the draft to 1, 2, or 3. They're going to stick with number 4. There were rumors a couple of weeks ago that they were interested in Willie Cauley-Stein. If the other 2 big guys aren't available, Okafor or Towns. I'm wondering if that still holds true, if that rumor, I should say, is still out there. And if they do stay at number 4, would they be interested possibly in dealing with the Nuggets and getting Ty Lawson as part of a deal, simply because the Knicks need a point guard?
Yeah, I've seen both trades. The Ty Lawson trade and also a Phoenix Suns trade was mentioned, where they trade down to 13, I think it is, and get Eric Bledsoe, who's a terrific guard. The other interesting question is Kristaps Porzingis, the Latvian guy, 7-footer. If he's still there at 4, all these NBA people are frothing at the mouth over him, but he's the one guy that I think Phil Jackson could get booed and run out of town in New York if you draft a 7-foot European who's going to be perceived as soft, and everybody's going to remember Frederick Weiss, and Andrea Bargnani's been a huge bust in New York. So it'll be really interesting if Porzingis is still there at 4 and they take him, because I think for another team to take him it would be okay, but for the Knicks, they have such a history of horrendous draft picks and European guys that it could really be a disaster. I mean, the good news is, they had a 4th pick, so one of the guys among Towns, Okafor, Russell, Moutier, Porzingis, 2 of those guys are still going to be there at 4. So I think if they could get D'Angelo Russell, they'd be thrilled. I personally think Moutier would be a great pick. He's a 6'5", 215-pound guard who's played professionally. He's a tough kid, seems to want to play in New York. Larry Brown raves about him. I think they could do a lot worse than to get Moutier. But as far as Willie Cauley-Stein, his stock has fallen a little bit. Jonathan Gavoni from Draft Express had a story the other day that people are worried about his foot, and he was as high as number 5 or 6 on the mocks, and now he's down to number 11. So it's going to be very interesting. I don't think anybody really knows what the Knicks are going to do.
Adam, both Les and I believe that Moutier could end up being the best player in the draft. So I think if the Knicks were to get him, that he's the kind of guy that I call him a big, strong, athletic Allen Iverson. He is a John Wall type of player, only there have been very few 6'5" point guards in the league. There was Magic Johnson, but Oscar Robertson, Michael Ray Richardson, who played for the Knicks until he had drug problems, did a really good job for the Knicks. So I agree with you. Moutier is a guy that I think would fit in perfectly for the Knicks. He's a athletic, fluid, strong rebounding kind of guard that I think would bring excitement back to the Garden.
Yeah, Larry Brown raved about him. I had him on my podcast. He says he's a true, pure point guard. whereas he sees D'Angelo Russell as a great player but not a point guard. You have to remember, up until Moutier went to China, he was ranked number 2 in a lot of mock drafts behind Okafor. So he's been in the top 2 or 3 of most mocks for the past year, and he hasn't, all he's done since then is go overseas, play professionally against other men with a shot clock. He got injured, obviously, in China, but he came back and performed pretty well after that in the playoffs. So he certainly hasn't hurt his stock since he was the projected number 2 pick. So, we're not going to know about any of these guys for 2, 3, 5 years down the road. But I think Moutier could turn out to be a real star.
He's Adam Zagoria, and he's the basketball insider for SportsNet New York. Adam, really appreciate your time. What's your Twitter handle?
At Adam Zagoria, and people can check me out on zagsblog.com.
Easy enough.
Everybody will do that, and you have looked handsome as hell on our 70-inch screen behind us. Your picture with you and your Sports New York Point TV, and I think, Adam, you should jump in. I heard the other day that the Yankees offered the guy who caught the ball a chance to be on Yes TV, and I thought, man, that's something I wouldn't want to do. Be on there with Michael for a year. Maybe if you offered.
I'm a Yankee fan, but I work for SNY, which is the home of the Mets, so I don't know if they're going to go for that.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying you should do it. Hey, appreciate your time.
Thanks,
you.
Adam.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, Adam Zagoria brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's.
And they are.